Jahlil Okafor from Duke, Karl Towns, Kentucky. These two are the consensus 1-2 prospects in this year's draft. They both are big-time one-and-done centers. So, do I agree with these rankings? Let's get to it. Who says post-ups are dead? Jahlil Okafor is the best post prospect in this year's draft. He's terrific at creating for himself around the basket and finishing with his great touch and massive hands. He has the complete post-up package as he can use step-throughs, pump fakes, and as you see here, a spin to the baseline with an impressive finish. He's a terrific finisher around the basket. He knows how to use his body and his strength to get the easiest shot possible. He's crafty and his post game should translate to the next level. Towns isn't the finisher or post-up player Okafor is, but he does a decent job in his own right. He has a nice but basic arsenal of post-up moves, he's a solid finisher, he has pretty good touch especially on his right-handed jump hook which he used often in college. And he has pretty solid strength. He's not as strong as Okafor yet, but he's pretty strong in his own right, and that helped him and should help him in the NBA as a post player. One thing I love about Okafor's post game is you rarely see him take a really tough shot. He doesn't force it and he doesn't find himself in a terrible position often, while Towns it's still work in progress, and right here is a great example of that. But I'm not sold Okafor will be a once-in-a-generation post player. For one, post-ups are generally inefficient. Now, if you're a really good post player, that bucks that trend, and Okafor looks to be headed in that direction, but it's certainly not a lock that he will be a great post scorer, though it looks likely. Now, number 2 is a greater concern. Okafor is not a great passer. He's a solid one, but I actually think Towns is the better passer, and the assist-to-turnover ratio backs that up. Again, Okafor is not a bad passer. He can make the right pass against double teams most of the time, and he can definitely see over weaker double teams he faced in college. But considering he was the focal point of Duke's offense and he had plenty of talented players to pass to, averaging less than 2 assists per 40 minutes is very poor. His vision is just okay, and as you can see here, when he faces a double team, he can often hold the ball way too long. So to me, the notion that he has a great feel for the game or is an excellent passer is not accurate, and he certainly doesn't compare to someone like Marc Gasol passing-wise. Okafor also does not have a consistent face-up jumper. When LeBron posts up, for example, worst case scenario, he takes a little turnaround jumper. Okafor took 5 jump shots the whole season at Duke, and he has a lot of work to do in terms of shooting, and that is evident by the free throw percentage, where he shoots 51% compared to Towns' 81%. But enough about Okafor, let's talk about Towns. The assist-to-turnover ratio says Towns is an excellent passer for a big man, and the eye test backs that up. He is very unselfish and just has a great feel for the game. And watch this pass coming up. I mean, are you kidding me? That's just ridiculous. And here's a nice read off the pick and roll as he throws an alley-oop. I showed you the free throw percentage earlier, and it's clear Towns is a better shooter than Okafor. He only took 8 threes in college, and he has a long ways to go in terms of stretching the floor for an NBA team, but as you can see, he has nice form and a lot of potential in this area. Towns and Okafor are both solid rebounders, but I think Towns could be an elite rebounder, as 12.7 is a great number per 40 minutes, and especially considering he had to compete with Willie Cauley-Stein and Trey Lyles for those rebounds at Kentucky. Now let's talk about defense. Size-wise, they're very similar, and Okafor has a slight strength advantage. The numbers say Towns is clearly the better rim protector, as 4.3 blocks per 40 minutes is very impressive, and the eye test backs that up as well. Towns is a very willing defender on the defensive end. He knows when to rotate from the weak side, he's very active, and here you see him getting 2 blocks. He just plays hard. Watch here, he shows decent lateral quickness as he takes a charge. He's willing to take a charge and guard perimeter players. Look how active and engaged he is. Look here how he defends a pick and roll as he recovers to the roll man after containing the ball. Strength shouldn't be a concern at the next level. Look how he holds his own in the post, and I love how he puts his hands straight up here, very engaged, and he shows nice verticality. Okafor has above average size for an NBA center, and he has the tools to be a decent defender. He has pretty quick feet actually, and when he's engaged, like with 3 minutes left in the national championship game, he can be a decent defender. But he doesn't jump very high, and here he gets overpowered by a guard as he just could not get off the floor very well. But more concerning to me are his instincts. Watch Okafor on this play. A guard will drive and it's his responsibility to protect the paint, and he's staring right at the guard, but he simply does not react fast enough. His awareness is pretty poor on the defensive end, and at times he just doesn't seem to try. And I get it, he wanted to stay out of foul trouble, but he needs to protect the basket. You know, some players just like playing defense, like Karl Towns, and some players don't, like Jahlil Okafor. And as Draft Express noted, his effort level in general just wasn't that great. It's not a huge concern, but it's definitely notable, and here you see Syracuse has a 4-on-3 break, but Okafor is pretty casual in terms of running back on defense. Now, onto the player comparisons. I could see Towns being a lot like Al Horford, a dynamic offensive player who can shoot from the outside and holds his own in terms of rebounding and defense. But I also think he can be better than Horford. I can see him being an elite rebounder and defender at the next level, and maybe playstyle they're not similar, but in terms of impact, a guy like Robert Parrish, an elite defender and rebounder who's very skilled offensively, and is a guy who makes a lot of all-star teams and maybe makes the Hall of Fame someday. Call me pessimistic, but I see a lot of similarities between Eddie Curry and Okafor, a skilled offensive player who can finish around the basket and post up, but outside of that, there isn't much there. We'll see. I think Towns is an absolute stud and will be a great NBA player. Okafor I'm not so sure on. There's potential there, but there's also a significant downside, especially if he doesn't really amp up his energy level. A few more things, guys. Like last time, there will be a poll in the description where you can vote on who you think will be the better NBA player, Okafor or Towns. And two, and more importantly, I am recording a podcast tomorrow with Jay-Z Mazlish, I probably pronounced that wrong, excellent draft blog writer from wingspanaddicts.com. He's been writing about the NBA draft and he really has some great insight. Check out his website. But what I want you to do is comment a question about the NBA draft in the comment section and we'll answer it if we get to it. And that'll be a segment of the podcast. And also let me know if you want me to upload the podcast all in one as one long video on YouTube, or if I should divide it into several topics or sections and upload it over the course of the next week leading up to the draft. Thanks for watching. See you next time.